Hey everybody, and welcome back to the next part in my dialing in series for our Line 6 Helix. I'm actually doing what might come across as a bit of a duplicate here. Back a while ago, I did a George Lynch, dialing in the style of George Lynch, or George Lynch-ish, I think as I called it. And I kind of focused on the song Kiss of Death from the Back for the Attack album that Dokken had. And right after I put that out, a lot of people kind of said to me, why'd you pick that one? Why didn't you do something from like Under Lock and Key album? Which seemed to be a more preferable tone. And I agree, actually. I really preferred his tone on Under Lock and Key to let's say the Back for the Attack, Kiss of Death. It was a real abrasive tone. But so I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go do that. I was looking for another guitar solo cover to do, and I came across, popped into my head to maybe do Lightnin Strikes Again from the Under Lock and Key album. So this is not an exact duplicate. I wasn't trying to duplicate George Lynch's tone. I didn't spend a huge amount of time trying to copy it, but just more get it in that style or something that would work, and possibly for most of the songs off that album. So by no means am I saying that this is the tone. I researched a little bit about, you know, what George used on that album. There's all sorts of different opinions as to what he used. I think there was Michael Wagner, who was the engineer on there. I believe there was a write-up online saying that it was a combination of Laney amps, and then they were going into a Fostex 4-track to get a little bit of dirt out of it, and like some crazy stories. So who knows? And it doesn't really matter. I just wanted to get something that would work well. And I think what I came up here actually ended up sounding great in the mix. And I have another video that's up right at the same time as this one, and it's my Lightnin Strikes Again video, where I did my own backing track. All the rhythm guitars are the rhythm guitar snapshot from this, untouched in the mix, and all the leads are the lead snapshot from this preset, untouched in the mix. Again, nothing's done to them after, so you can hear how these sit in the mix. And I think they compared fairly nicely, and you could see they would do a nice job if you were trying to play some Lynch stuff from the Dokken, Under Lock and Key era. So let's take a look and see what I did with this, okay? This is a pretty extreme tone. It really is, but it worked in the mix. And I actually dialed this in beforehand, going what I thought was fairly aggressive on the high end to get that nice fizziness they had in this tone. But then I ended up going back and reamping the guitars with the DI signal that I always put down with Helix Native, and even tweaking it more. So it's a very aggressive tone. I hope it translates well. And again, this is on this guitar through my monitoring system, right? So I hope it translates to everybody. Anyways, what I chose was the Derailed Ingrid. I just really like this amp. It's not that I think that George used anything like it, although I think there was some rumor at some point that in George's career, not necessarily with Dokken, that he did use a train wreck amp. Again, I don't know about that. Correct me if I'm wrong. But what I did do is come up with, for the rhythm snapshot, and actually for the lead, both the amp stays the same. So the settings are drive at 6.5, bass at 5.5, mid at 4.5, treble at 7.2, presence at 6.6, channel volume at 9, and master at 5. And that's all going into a 412 greenback 20 cab with a 160 ribbon 2 inches back, okay? Now you'll notice here, there was something neat, that there was a bit of a fattening to the sound that I couldn't put my finger on, but I threw the gray flanger on, very mild, like a whole note setting, width at 0.2, manual at 0.2, regen at 0.2, spread at 10, mix at 40%, just to give it a little bit of fatness to it. It's almost, you could turn it off and it's just a subtle change to it. I'll show you that in a minute. I did use my split crossover in a really different way. I set it at 4 kilohertz, and all the frequencies below that I didn't touch, but everything above that I boosted by 12 dB. There's a real funny high end going on in this sound. It's a fat sound, but it has that fizziness, right, that a lot of people actually try to dial out of sounds. But a lot of those 80s tones had that, right? And that's what really helped them to cut in the mix. So I started this off around 6, put it up to 7, 8, and then finally, when I was doing the mix, I pulled up Helix Native, and I just tried cranking it to 12, and it actually sat in the mix really well. What you're gonna hear in the mix is a left and a right panned, hard panned, doubled rhythm guitar. And then you're going to hear the two trading solos, which one's panned left and one's panned right, which is going to be the lead snapshot, okay? So a big boost, sort of a high shelf of everything above 4 kilohertz. Now, how I counteracted that is I came in and I did a high cut of 13 kilohertz so that, you know, all those frequencies above 4 kilohertz are going to get a shelf EQ, but then we're going to roll everything off above 13 kilohertz, and it rolled everything below 55 hertz off as well. We'll come back to the EQ in a second. I have a little bit of room verb, decay of 4.5, pre-delay of 12 milliseconds, a mix of 30%. On the lead, I put the delay in, nothing on the delay there. Now, there's a couple EQs here. What I did to fatten it up is I put 140 hertz, Q of 1.2, I boosted 8 dB. 450 hertz, Q of 1.7, I took 2 dB out just to clean up a little bit of mud. And at 4.6 kilohertz with a Q of 4.5, fairly narrow, I boosted 2.5, okay? I also put another EQ with 260 hertz at a very narrow Q of 9.3, just to notch out 4 dB of that frequency, to kind of clean up the low end a little bit, right? So that we were getting the beef from the other EQ, but this was kind of taking care of another problem I heard. And then also, because of such a big boost in the high end, right, I also went in fairly narrow at 8.7 Q at 5.5 kilohertz and dropped that down 5 dB. So that all kind of got it to where I really liked the sound of it in the mix. I had the peak reduction on the LA Studio Comp at the end of 5.5 and the gain at 5.5, okay? So let's just do this. Let's turn off our EQs, okay? And our flanger. This is what the basic, the only thing I left on here was the reverb and the compressor at the end. This is what the amp basically sounded like. Okay, now, when I turn these EQs on, turn this one on, we'll see what it sounds like. So you hear the fatness come back into it. Okay, turn this EQ on. Now, what happens when I put the split crossover on? Now that sounds very extreme, but it actually sits in the mix really well. But it's probably way more than I would go if I was ever dialing a sound in just to my liking. But this sort of seemed to be what was going on with that Lynch tone. Now, listen when I bring the flanger in. Okay, this guitar's tuned down half step. It's a little wonky. The tuning's a little crazy because the strings are loose. It's not really set up to be down a half step, so it's kind of odd. Sorry about that. So now that's basically the rhythm tone, okay? So we could use this for different things on that album, right? Whatever that riff is. You know, if you find it really too fizzy, what you can do is you can come and dial in with the top part of the split crossover technique that I'm using, right? If I bring that back to 6, you get something like this. And you'll see as I bring it up, it just gets a little more of that high-end fizzing. So 12 sounds extreme, but like I said, I was doing this based off of the final mix, which you'll hear in the other video. So please go give it a listen. But again, I want you to know that you can also come in here and fine tune that to what your needs are. And it's gonna work nicely. If you find it a little bit too bright, just peel that back and it's gonna work. So what did I do on the lead snapshot? Well, what I did is I left everything the same, except I brought a Scream 808 overdrive into the picture with a gain of 2 and a tone up to 10 to really help this lead cut through this mix, okay? I also added a fairly good amount of delay, set it a half note, 180 beats per minute is the approximate tempo of the song, and a mix of 30%, okay? So bringing those two things in sounded like this. So it gave us ample sustain, ample delay, very edgy, harsh sound. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, it really is. And like I said, it's not something I would normally dial in, but man, did it ever work in the mix. And I think that's the important thing with this. Even if we're playing live, this tone is going to get you to cut through the mix. Even a nice dense mix, it's gonna cut through there. So it might just be the thing you need in certain situations. It worked really nicely for this whole Lightnin Strikes Again solo. So a real abrasive, fizzy edginess, but what the heck, it seems to work. So that's basically the tone. Please go listen. Like I know I've said it a couple times already, but please go listen to the Lightnin Strikes Again video I just did. It's all of these tones, right? So again, what you're gonna hear in there is rhythm guitar panned left and right, so a doubled rhythm guitar, left, right, using the rhythm snapshot. Nothing touched in the mix after the fact. And then the two dueling leads where I get to actually duel with myself, which was kind of fun. I use just the lead snapshot with these exact settings. So this is what you're hearing in the mix. But again, you know, if you find that that's too much, too fizzy, too abrasive, you know, maybe you come back to the tone on the Scream 808 and you dial it back. Or maybe you come up to the split crossover and you dial that back to, not minus 8.8, you know. Hear how dark things get then all of a sudden, right? So I just found that in the mix, these settings work. Also, I wasn't using this guitar for the leads in the other video. I was using my Dokken Progression Plus with a JB Jr.'s, Dokken JB Jr. This is Lawler El Rail pickups in this Dokken Summit. So this was where the rhythm guitars and the leads were done on the Progression Plus. So yes, this is an over-the-top preset. Absolutely, I will have this up on CustomTone. I know it's an over-the-top preset, but also if you find it too abrasive, you also know from what we talked about here how you can fix that for your own liking. But I think it's a pretty cool preset, and I think leave me your comments on the other video as well to let me know how you liked it in the mix. All right. Well, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. That was kind of out of the blue. I decided to do this today and just threw it all together, the solo and everything. It was a real fun little exercise, and I hope you guys enjoyed both videos and the preset. All right, so please like the video, share it if you don't mind, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Appreciate all the kind words of support you guys give me. And also keep in mind, my new album is coming out Friday. It's on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, at my website. It's available. So please, if you don't mind, go grab that. And I hope you enjoy the music there too. So, all right, I will be back soon with some more content, guys. As for now, thank you so much. And ciao. We'll talk soon.